Hey, what's up? It's DJL7. We're actually live, and today I have a very special guest. But I'm gonna let him introduce himself. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, DJL7. I appreciate this opportunity to share this time with you and to just get an opportunity to say hello and figure things out and get an idea of uh, what you bring to the table, what the people out here, your audience are looking for, and just figuring out a way that we can get things going and flowing together. My name is Javon Terell Ross, and I'm from California. I am currently a student at Columbia University. I'm on medical leave right now, taking a break, and there's some things that have transpired that require my running for mayor and becoming the next mayor. I'll just put it like that.
Okay, I appreciate that. So, just to kind of like get us a idea of what kind of of your activism or your political beliefs, but what kind of started you on the whole path of being more political, or getting politically aware to the point where not necessarily running for mayor, but just what's the first like political or activist thing that you kind of did?
I would say I'm someone who actually doesn't like politics at all, right? I don't appreciate the system and the methodology of politics. Now, politics itself, if it's done correctly, there's a space for it. But the current definition of what politicking is, or policy handling and whatnot, what it means to be a politician, in my mind and in my perspective, it's corrupt for the general collective, right? And because of that, we need to change. For so long, it's been, this candidate is promising this, that candidate is promising that, right? And growing up, ever since I can remember, probably from 3 years old, I'm looking at life, and once I get the opportunity to really understand what's going on. I say 3 years old because there's things that I had in my mind when I was 3 years old that I remember about, just growing up and wanting to do things. And it has to do with politics. So, but as I matured and had an opportunity to really understand what's going on and understand the dynamics of politics, we need to change it, And
Okay.
so I'm a former military guy, and I've never been in politics as a quote unquote politician, but I've been in the government for most of my life, right? And that has given me an opportunity to understand the background, what happens behind the scenes,
Yeah.
And so seeing different things develop from overseas and being in the United States and seeing different things, having different experiences, it's caused me to have this desire, this burning sensation inside of me that says, hey, look, enough is enough. We need to stop pimping the people that we say we want to help. And
Right.
And that's the thing. So we take dollars, but we don't give anybody change, right? We pay these people, we pay these politicians, quote unquote politicians. Not even politicians. Let's take it back to candidates, because we pay candidates to say, hey, look, represent us. And then we pay them because we think, oh, I contributed to your campaign, so now you owe me something, right? I can't be bought. There's not enough money in this world to cause me to be silent or to be bought. That's part of the reason why. I don't know if you've seen my testimony with the CFB, but during that testimony,
What is CFB?
The CFB is the Campaign Finance Board.
Okay.
This is where we have to register. So if you look at my campaign, I have a small campaign because I don't plan on raising any money or asking for donations or anything like that. That's not what I'm doing. It doesn't require money to take care of people. It requires effort. It requires support. It requires dedication, right? And so my idea is that, look, why haven't we given people their change? We pay and we pay and we pay and we pay. But then those people that don't get into office, what happens to all that money?
I can tell you actually some of those things. Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, what we need to be doing is if people want to contribute to a campaign, it should go into one central box for that office, for that particular chair. And whoever gets put into office then uses all the money that's been collected, itemized, and accountable to the people that we're representing. We have a lot of politicians out here, right, that say they want to help the people. They're for the people, but they're scared of them. They don't even want to talk to them.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of other, exactly as in terms of like where the money went. We'll get into that later, like as from something called county and state committee, because sometimes the money can go there, the money can go towards another run, but sometimes the money does go into state committee where they can actually start to manufacture and control candidates and, like, usher them in through backdooring through something called special elections. Actually, 1/3 of all New York City's elected officials are backdoored in through special elections. People that are rich come from rich families. Often, instead of taking a chance in a regular primary, they'll actually be backdoored in so they can, don't have to face the shame of losing an election. So there's all kinds of other stuff going on with that, but it's just interesting. Having an experience in the military, going to school again, you're interacting with the government in many ways. And yeah, that makes sense how you would actually get started and awaken to the corruption going on in the system and the shortcomings. So that's a great answer. And by the way, thank you for your service, right? I believe you're a Marine.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
yes,
okay, let's move on to the next question. Now, the thing is that some people define themselves, right, just to help us understand who you are, with a certain political ideology. We know that AOC says that she's a socialist. We know that some people say that they're conservatives, right? It doesn't have to be like in the kind of like financial framing, right? I think socialism has to do some kind of like financial, like capitalism versus socialism. Conservatism is slightly different, right? Do you have certain political ideologies that you would define yourself as or follow?
I would say for me, I don't fall in any of those categories.
Okay.
I'm someone who is strictly about what is best for the people on an individual, collective basis. So, meaning you and I and other people, we all face some of the same things. We don't have the same problems, but we have to deal with some of the same issues, right? And so my approach is that, look, how do we manage this issue, dissolve it, or develop it into something else that is going to work out for the collective?
I actually really love, go ahead. I love that answer so much because honestly, that's my own personal take. You take a look at like martial arts schools, and usually it's like the white belts or the yellow belts, right? Or the beginning belts who say, "Oh, my style is the best in the world." But once people have been involved, in martial arts for a long time, they respect other art forms and saying, it's not necessarily so much about the style, but it's about the person practicing. And there's sometimes the right tool for the right job. Your one style or system may not have all the solutions for all the situations. So I do believe that's a more mature response. But that's just me, right? There are, by the way, experts in certain styles and things like that. So I'm not trying to put down anybody who believes in certain ideology, but I do like that flexibility. And that's my own personal viewpoint as well.
Thank you. I like that.
I like that, right? So let's move on to the next question over here. Some people are influenced by a certain person, and their political thought or ideas. So, I was raised in the U.S. Obviously, it's going to be Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. I don't know about actors from other countries, but or it could be just someone in leadership, right? Like Jack Welch. Actually, he's not all good. He was actually CEO of General Electric, and actually increased them by I think like 80 or maybe even 800 times. He increased the net worth of that organization by so much, and had some interesting thoughts on management. But what are some particular people that are maybe influential to your way, leadership or governance or anything just like that?
First and foremost, I'll say that my foundation and my belief in God is the foundation. I'm not someone now. I'm not someone who pushes religion or anything like that on anyone, but that is how I regulate my own actions in my life, right? So first is just love your neighbor as yourself. That's my rule, right? And so leading into what my foundation is there's 3 R's. It's respect and love, reform in love, and then restore in love. That's what my whole mayorship and everything is based on. Those are my fundamental values in life. So dealing with anyone I come across or anything I come across, the first thing I'm going to do is everything I can to respect whatever it is with love, in love. I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to like what you're doing. I don't have to any of that. But the one thing I'm going to do is respect in love. And then once that happens, the other 2 happen automatically. So if we did have an issue, first we're going to start respecting each other in love. And then that's going to give us an opportunity to say, how can we reform whatever it is maybe I'm doing or you're doing or we're doing that needs to change for us to now restore our connection with each other or restore whatever it is that needs to be restored, right? It could be a person, place, or thing. So that's me. That's my foundation. That's who I am. I'm a person who is just full of love, because when you're full of love, you have no fear. You have nothing else to even consider, because anytime something comes your way, you're going to deal with it. You're going to handle it with love. Now, does that mean you're not going, if you need to handle something, I'll say this, you asked me a good question. The Marine Corps also taught me something. There's 3 F's that they gave us in the Marine Corps. It's firm, fair, and fun, right? Be firm when you have to be. Always be fair, and do your best to have fun, right?
Sounds good to me.
So you take that approach when you're saying, hey, look, my uncle as well. My uncle Nolan told me something. He says, don't take yourself serious. Take what you have to do serious. And so that's another approach to my methodology in handling business, right? My mother taught me a lot of stuff. My dad taught me a lot of things. My brothers taught me a lot of things, and just interacting with people. But I would say the general foundation comes from my foundation in God and my family and the Marine Corps.
All right. So the next question is, there's different people who come to run for different positions with a different background. And to really help us really understand or differentiate between them, I'd like to ask you, what are you most proud of accomplishing? Now, when you answer that, some people say my kids, but try to make that answer more related towards management or, and sometimes people do go back and try to, pair those things together. I'm not mad at that, right? But just, keeping that in mind, right? This is actually, after all, an interview regarding, you're running for mayor, right? So what are you most proud of accomplishing?
That's a great question. And first, I'll say this. I'm someone who steers away from pride. And I'm someone who defines being proud of something as being prideful. I don't see anything against it. It's just not how I would phrase it or frame it. So my response to say is, what is my greatest quality, or something that is about me that transfers over to other people, is bringing out the best in others.
Okay.
So,
but more than the quality, we're looking for accomplishments, because some people say, oh, I'm this, I'm that, right? But to see a body of work, or to see what you've actually accomplished, and I think you're quite accomplished, actually. I've already looked you up, right? I know you're a triathlete, I know you're a Marine, things like that. But a lot of people come to this game with great ideas, but how have they actually implemented those ideas? What have they actually achieved? Things like that.
Yeah, following up on that, I would say, man, I don't like talking about myself like that, but I'll share it in this respect.
Thank you.
I'm grateful to be able to have had the opportunity to be one of the best practitioners when I was in the military. With my job, I was considered one of the best. when I've gone to school. I've been considered one of the best academically. These are like low level accomplishments. I would say I'm just building up to something else, but in general, just my ability to not give up and always see something through is my accomplishment, my achievement, is being able to see things through. And what that looks like is, like you said, for instance, the Ironman situation. And in 2022, I started doing the Ironmans. I said to myself, I said, man, I need to do something to harness this energy that I have inside of me that I can't do anything with. I need an outlet. So transitioning from the military, I used to have an outlet when I was in the military. I had an outlet when I was working for the government. Now I'm in school. I don't have the same outlet. So I'm like, I need to do something. And so I said, all right, how can I give back? You're an athlete? Okay, well, do this. You've always wanted to do an Ironman. So start your business, make it a nonprofit, and commit to doing one every single month for the rest of your life and see what happens, right? So in doing that, in 2022, I was able to do 8 triathlon events all around the world. And at the end, I got an email from the Ironman organization. And the email caught me way off guard because it wasn't something that I was anticipating. It wasn't even something that I knew about and was aware of. I just started doing these Ironmans because it was my way of releasing and doing what I need to do. Therapeutic, right? So at the end of the day, I get this email and they say, hey, your performance has placed you at the top of the Ironman category in your division. And I looked at this and I was like, oh, okay, what is this? What does this mean? So just going through and doing these, it taught me a lot. And I'm gonna close this up real quick. And what I learned is just by going out there and saying to myself, hey, look, I'm not out here competing with anyone. I'm out here to take the L. And I would talk to other participants and they're like, what do you mean you're out here to take the L? I'm like, yeah, I'm out here to take the L. I said, do you know what the difference is between the word compete and complete is? An L, right? So I'm out here to finish. And that's what makes me someone who's accomplished. Because when I put my mind to something, no matter what it is, it might take me 50 years. But as long as I'm alive and able, you better believe I'm coming for it. I don't forget it. And I'm coming with love. I'm coming to do what needs to be done for the majority. You know, you can't satisfy everyone. And that's not my intent here. But my intent is to make it better for everyone.
Sounds great. Yeah, I appreciate that. Now, that's pretty much the questions about yourself. Now I'm going to actually sail into the questions on policy. Now, just so you know, I actually work with a coalition because as a minority, we cannot win without, in a democracy, we cannot win without coalition. So, and by the way, this team is actually looking for a candidate to help represent their interests, and they may be actually provide you support with votes or maybe fundraisers or, you know, petitioning, right? That's another thing you're going to have to do to qualify. And we'll talk more about those particular things that you may need. Also, just so you know, my team is actually trying to run for something called county committee. Mm-hmm. Exactly what you talked about before. I believe that some candidates have a lot of money left over after they run. Some of them are in debt, right? What happens afterwards? So by county committee, they can determine through the state committee. Sometimes the money can be redirected back to a state committee, whatever party they're running for. By the way, are you planning on running as a Democrat, Republican, or independent?
I'm an independent.
Okay. You could also run with possible other third parties. I believe that Working Families Party and Conservative Party are on the ballot line. Mm-hmm. You could also try to claim another one, but you know, those are just other options. But just back to the you know, the party once again can actually possibly have some funds to try to help you with maybe getting some commercials, things like that, and also has a network, right? So my coalition will be putting together. Let's start off with I like to put my partners first, so I'm going to ask about some of their issues first, and then, which is quite a few, and then we're going to get to my question then is, I'll give you a chance to talk about some of your things.
All right.
So one of the areas of activism that I work with is in public housing. And one of the thing is that there's in Chelsea, there's actually something called Fulton Chelsea houses. And back in the day when I was in college, I'm actually 48 now. The thing is that it's a long time. Obama had this new thing called Red Pact. And the thing is that they said they could no longer pay for public housing. So as a nation, United States, we're going to divest from public housing. So United States will be one of the few developed countries in the world to no longer have public housing. That's a separate issue that we're going to address in a moment. But in order to, so they said that since we can't pay for the public housing, we're going to give, the reason why there wasn't a huge controversy is because they said that we're going to give the public housing to people that actually live there. So people said, you know what, that sounds acceptable. But now, in order to break the history of tenancy, in order to take over those apartments, what happens is they're destroying the whole entire building, and then they're rebuilding a new building, and then telling the tenants that so now the tenants those apartments don't exist anymore. Do you see what I mean? So would you support the people at Fulton Chelsea who are trying to fight the demolition of their homes? Or if you have to find out more, that's fine. But people at Fulton Chelsea, they're in public housing right now, and they're trying to demolish those homes. We have elderly people, we have veterans, we got people in there that have disabilities, and they're facing imminent eviction. Would you support the, maybe you got to find, will you at least support a stay of demolition on that particular project?
It's interesting dynamic. The thing that, for me, approaching this, the questions I would have that need to be asked and answered would be, first and foremost, is have the people agreed to being moved, or have they been paid? Have they been accommodated? Are there what's being done to make sure these people have a place to live while the development is taking place? If the development is going to take place, how are these people going to be taken care of in the interim? Right? We house all sorts of people that come out here and need asylum and all sorts of other things. So we need to figure out, how can we take care of our own people as well, right? So that would be my first question to figure out is, if we're going to do a project like this, how do we take care? You said what?
I can answer that question.
Okay,
just so you know, this actually, there's over, I believe, about 500,000 people who live in public housing here in New York City. And the thing is that they've already implemented some of these demolition plans in some other sites, right? Remember this happening all across the nation. New York City is one of the last places in the nation to still have some form of public housing. Most of it has been switched over to something called affordable housing or Section 8. But really, public housing over here, what they do is there's a lot of places that have said that they're going to put the people into transitional housing, but then that doesn't occur. There's a long history of that happening. They are actually telling people at Fulton Chelsea that they will put them in transitional housing. And also, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of actually vacancies inside of these public housing units because they don't want to put people in there because they know they're going to just move them out anyways. Another thing they're doing is they're putting in people who don't speak a lot of English, right? Chinese, first generation people, Latino people, because unfortunately, they're easy to push around. They're easy, right? They have the language barriers. A lot of times they're just sign here, sign here. They don't really speak the language. They sign and then their rights are taken away. So they have unfortunately paid off sometimes the tenant association presidents to sign on board with these projects. But I understand that you got to go and take a look at that yourself, right? So they've been in the process of petitioning. Actually, I have footage of people raising a lot of, protesting at community board meetings, and also when the developer has come to try to sell their project at the development. So I understand, right? And that's actually a mature answer to not just jump on board to have questions, but at least my audience, this interview will be sent specifically to my public housing partners. I have relationships with many tenant association president public housing, and they'll see that you're someone who's receptive and can start a conversation. And then we can start to say, you know what, this is someone who actually cares about your issue, is going to learn about it. And this is someone who we might actually support in his run for mayor if we can really, come to an agreement. So I think that's totally fair. You can't know everything, right? That would be, and I appreciate someone who just doesn't say a soundbite in a convincing way and it's so fake, and there's no real right. It's a complex issue. So
Yeah.
your questions are intelligent and address exactly what's going on. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. No, you're good. I just want to add one thing to that before we move on, and that is understanding not only what are we going to do in terms of if it's going to happen, but then forgive me, sometimes I'm recovering from an injury, so sometimes my train of thought gets a little off.
I understand, yeah.
But if the housing establishment with the development,
Right.
the thing is, there should be no rush to develop anything in haste, right? Why does it need to be developed? What is it going to accomplish if we start this activity right now? Is it going to save somebody's life? Like, is it going to do more harm or cause more, havoc, right? So that would be the first thing, is to just say, hey, look, let's take a step back, reassess the situation, and figure out what we really should be doing first, second, and third, and then go from there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, just so you know, NYCHA, the current administrator of the housing, they actually had the largest bust for bribery in federal DOJ history. They also have been found to be falsifying lead inspection things that caused actually permanent brain damage and deaths. They've been cited to be the worst landlord several years in a row. And the thing is that these apartments, remember, they're public housing where minorities live and poor people live. So the thing is that these homes are actually devalued as in terms of what they're worth. Sometimes I believe that there was someone who lived in Long Island City. Not sure if that testimony is 100% correct, but they said Queensbridge Houses, which is the oldest development in New York City, they said that they bought their apartment for $30,000. Those apartments are easily worth over $1 million in London, Chelsea. So if you look at if there's 100, 200, units of housing inside of Chelsea, and those apartments go from, $200,000 to like over $1 million, right? Because remember, the landlord before is forced to, take certain people into the apartments that they might not want, or they're supposed to accept certain rents that they might not accept. Now it goes free market. That value is going to shoot way up, and they stand to make maybe over $1 million per apartment. So, and if you take a look, I think there's over 80, I forgot the exact number of developments around New York City. They stand to make, this is over billions of dollars of a deal that they're going to make in profits. So that's the driving force.
Yeah, that's it right there, right? What is the reason behind doing it? Is it to help people, or is it to fill the pockets? Right.
That's what it is, man. Yeah, that's what it is.
So I have no tolerance for that. Just
appreciate that. Yeah,
straight zero tolerance. I've already, like, just to make this point, I also said in my testimony with the CFB, I told them, I said, look, you put me into office, I don't want to get paid. I'm doing it as a volunteer, right? And if they do pay me, that money is just going to go directly to some sort of something to help people. But I don't want to get paid. I don't need to get paid to do my job, to do this job. It doesn't require money. It requires someone who's dedicated to saying, hey, this needs to be done, and it needs to be done the right way. Let's get rid of all this corruption, at least for a little while. You know what I mean? Let's at least say, hey, look, let us reset. If you're going to come at us with all this nonsense, let us at least have a fighting chance to survive. So why don't we arm people with the necessities at a minimum before we start coming at them and saying, hey, the American dream says I can take you out and make all the money I can off of you.
Yeah.
All
right. Yeah, that's perfect. I really appreciate that. Yeah. Let's move on to another one of my allies. Just started to say that the public housing, even though they have a lot of potential, they don't really vote very well. I think Fulton Chelsea actually lost their election by the widest margin out of all contested races in New York City. So my heart goes out to them. They're not the best political partners, but I do look out for them. Once again, they're our most vulnerable, disabled, elderly. It's hard for them to come out, right? They're in public housing for a reason. But one of my best political allies is actually the wrongfully incarcerated. So actually, I have a guy named Nolan Farrell. He actually has a letter from the Conviction Integrity Unit that says that the person who was used to convict him, the witness, was actually in jail at the time that the incident occurred. So the conviction integrity unit says that his conviction doesn't make any sense and he should be vacated, but he still hasn't been exonerated. That's because he actually pointed the finger at someone named John Castellano, who's actually still working in the DA's office. There was actually a previous, I think his name was John Brown or something like that. Right now, it's Melinda Katz. But the former administration was known. I can actually send you an article where there was something called China walling. I might even share that on the screen. So something called China walling, where the Queens DA was known to have been forcefully, wrongfully convicting people to maintain their conviction rate numbers. I'll actually bring that up in a second. So the mayor right now has been dodging these issues. I don't know if you saw if you looked me up, if you saw my YouTube, but I took two longest wrongfully incarcerated men in New York State history, Otis Johnson, Reverend Keith Edson, to Kamala Harris's office. We didn't receive any help. For people that have been wrongfully incarcerated, also, just so you know, Republicans are known for killing a lot of people, with the death penalty in Texas, which I think is sad. I'm not really for that. But they also have the best exoneration rates in the nation. So the thing is that, when they mess up, they allow that. And they have the best compensation for people with wrongful incarceration, saying people who've been wrongfully incarcerated get $50,000 per year. Now, I think that's low, right? That's like minimum wage, kind of like, entry-level job. They did time in prison. Their lives have been horribly affected, but still, that's the best on paper compensation record in the nation. Would you support so that's two things. Would you support the wrongfully incarcerated and help bring the criminal justice system to be more fair? Number two, would you support a compensation for the wrongfully incarcerated?
Short answer, yes. Sure. Explanation, yeah, explanation. Let me give you a quick little background on me. All right.
Okay.
When I was working for the government still, as doing things that I do or did, I was traveling through New York and I was wrongfully arrested because I had my gun checked in and flying through, passing through New York. I had to switch planes and whatnot. And at any rate, they arrested me when I was checking my gun in. And I'm like, why are you arresting me when I work for the government? I'm authorized to have this gun and a whole bunch of others. So I spent 2 days in behind bars, being processed. And they were trying to send me to
Rikers?
Yeah, they were trying to send me there for 3 years on three felony counts. And I said to myself,
you were trying to check it in.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like, what are you doing here? They were saying, oh yeah, illegal intent to use, having live rounds and an intent to. It was just all this fabricated, and I'm like, what are you doing? To the point of I was in there behind bars with the U.S. Marshal who was dealing with the same thing. So New York has this, or in the past, this was like 2011, 2012. In the past, they had this whole thing about, well, if you don't have a New York gun license, then it's illegal, right? So you want to try to put people away wrongfully. So I've been wrongfully put behind bars. It wasn't a long time, but it was long enough to know if they're putting people like me in a U.S. Marshal, how many other people? We already know that there are several innocent people. Like there's tons of innocent people in prison. We know this, right? But beyond that part of it, you're arresting people who are in law enforcement.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. It needs to be handled. And that's one of the highest things on my list is dealing with the corruption in law enforcement. And then as far as
over here, the Queens voters head to the polls Tuesday. That was years ago. The acting district attorney was 3 lawsuits filed showed that the DA's office implemented a policy that was indifferent to misconduct and rewarded prosecutors for winning cases. They had something called the Chinese wall, which resulted in failures to disclose evidence of potentially exculpatory information to defense attorneys, and this is actually rampant. So, really appreciate your, these people have really suffered horribly. So,
definitely,
and because they've been victims of the system, they're very motivated to go out and relieve that pain and go out, right, just like yourself. They have a lot of energy pent up from being locked up, and now they're going to go out and petition for a candidate like crazy, right? So they've been some of my best allies in terms of political. So thank you so much for that. What about the compensation?
Yeah, 100%. The compensation.
Yeah.
Oh wow. All right. So I'm dealing with a lot of stuff right now, which has led me to the mayor running for mayor, right?
Right.
Me dealing with Columbia University and the fact that they're trying to railroad me and keep me from finishing my education and do all sorts of other things and working in cahoots with with NYPD, right? So I'm dealing with a legal system right now myself that is causing me to have to address the corruption and having gone around and interacted with different entities, the Commission on Human Rights, the City Commission on Human Rights, the State Commission on Human Rights, like these different entities, mayor's office. When I went to the mayor's office to try to have my current situation addressed, right? And I got the runaround, I got dismissed. So understanding that, I said, what is going on? I can't get help. How are they allowing a university to do this to someone? I'm 100% disabled combat veteran, right? So I already relate to the disability community. I relate to the wrongfully incarcerated. I relate to the people who've been done wrong through the system, right? I relate to the people that have been dismissed and told, oh yeah, we're going to help you. No, you're not helping anybody. So how do we get to the bottom of it? How do we figure this out? And so what that led me to is finding out who's in charge of these different people, who's in charge of the commissioner, who's in charge of these offices, who's in charge of these, the mayor. And so I said to myself, I said, wow, this has to change. So September 8th is when the whole NYC mayor thing came to me. September 8th, I'm sitting at the park and I'm just contemplating and thinking about all these things that are transpiring. And I'm saying, look, I'm a veteran. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm entitled to anything. I'm saying it in terms of how people look at people, right? They look at people in law enforcement. They're supposed to be a little bit respected or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Veterans are supposed to get a little bit of love too, right? But here I am being attacked for doing nothing wrong, for getting hurt, right?
You know, actually, yeah. Just so you know, that's actually one of my allies right there. We're going to ask that question again. And actually, it was just Veterans Day. Once again, respect to your sacrifice for the nation. Actually, one of my actually allies named Corey Edens, she's taking on academic administrative abuse at CUNY, where actually federal funds were stolen for cocaine parties by someone named Jeff Parsons, which led to the this year they just have a new CUNY president. CUNY's in charge and of the university system at New York City. I believe Columbia is actually outside the private, but you know, we were just at Columbia with 10,000 business cards trying to get issues of academic administrator abuse addressed, and we have actually a agreement from 3 prior U.S. presidential candidates who just ran, who are backing us in our request for an attempt to get a meeting with CUNY chancellor and also the Hunter University president. And I would love to add you to our coalition of people trying to fight for justice in the university system and abuse from university administrators. So that really lines up perfectly. So could we also, you know, I have the interview with another mayoral candidate before. Would you join our voices in terms of trying to get a meeting for myself and Corey Edens with the CUNY chancellor and also the current Hunter College president?
100% yes.
Okay, and by the way, we'll also help you in your quest to get a meeting with Columbia University's administrators as well. So we'll definitely join you. We were just out there handing out business cards and trying to get those students involved. And being a veteran, that actually, we already have a veteran that we work with who also cited abusive treatment of students. So this is actually, we were just talking about that. So that really lines up perfectly. Yes, Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I don't call myself the #1 street actor for nothing. Okay. Let's talk about another group called the second largest minority voting bloc in the nation. The #1 minority voting bloc in the nation is actually the Black people. But if they don't vote a lot, this could be the #1 voting minority bloc. That's the disabled. And the thing is that right now, one of the guys I work with, Mark Saffman, actually introduced legislation for something called co-navigator program for the deaf-blind. Within the disabled community, I actually work with the deaf-blind because a lot of times you'll see, like in advocacy, they'll put someone in a wheelchair there because they don't have the same amount of communication barriers. So it's easy, right, to have a conversation with someone in a wheelchair versus someone who's deaf-blind, who might need a sign language interpreter or might need right? Certain other accommodations to be put in place. So, what would you do to reflect? Will you work to make sure that there's authentic representation in disabilities, advocacy? So, like the mayor of, was it disabilities, the mayor's office of disabilities.
Yes, that's the office I went to.
We've also gone to the Division of Human Rights because the mayor of Office of Disabilities, they did such a crappy job. We had to go to, there you go. So when you said that, like certain bells were going off in my head, I was like, this guy's been down the same path. So
yes, indeed. And that's why I'm here right now, because it has to change.
So as in terms of disabilities, you're going to be an ally. That's great. And you've already, and you not just talking about, you've actually been down the path and been through this struggle. So yes, Downstate Adapt is another bunch of allies that I work with. We're going to try to get you hooked up with them. Maybe have like a policy, or maybe even a discussion panel with them, and make those relationships happen. So
absolutely,
just doing what I can to try to help candidates like yourself have the actual chance. Right.
Thank you.
Amazing. I really love this. You're kind of like a, I would say, dark horse winner, right? Yeah, like you're doing really well in this interview. So great job. Okay, another a guy that I work with is named Christopher Leon Johnson. I say he's the most prolific press reporter in New York City history. He doesn't really have all the editing and stuff to make it nice, but he's extremely prolific. And I asked him what he would want to address, and he said e-bike regulations. We know that there's bikes that are going up in flames because of poor condition batteries. In the military, you might know about that. Also in front of restaurants, you'll have like 20, 30 e-bikes in front as they're trying to do their deliveries. And, also you see people on e-bikes sometimes involved in thefts and things like that, crime. So what's your idea for e-bike regulations?
Wow. This is so interesting because these are experiences that I've been dealing with myself. So walking down the street with during the time in my recovery phase, like I've had to use a cane, I've had to use a walker, so I'm walking with my walker, and I've got these e-bikers speeding on the sidewalk between myself and other people, right? I'm like, I stopped the guy. I was like, hey, bro, why are you on the sidewalk? The street is right there, right? Like, be safe. So regulating in terms of short answer is yes, there needs to be some regulation, right? Right. That's the short answer. What is that regulation? It requires some feedback from people. Me being a cyclist and also a pedestrian, I have my own perspective, but I still need other people's perspectives, right? But one thing I would definitely say is, there shouldn't be any actual riding of it. You can walk your bike, but no riding on the sidewalk, right? And then another thing is, speaking of, just since we're on the whole cycling thing, I've been looking at just general cycling on the street, right? And figuring out how we can manage this a bit better, because people are walking, crossing, cycling, driving, and it's amazing that there aren't more incidents, but there's too many already, right? So maybe we can figure something out where there's like a temporary, hand arm that comes down to like stop people from walking, or allow the bikes to pass before the light turns green or something like that. Like segregate each component. Crosswalk is done. Bikes are done. Cars are done. Like something that may be a little more fluid, and dedicating not just lanes, but maybe streets. Start dedicating some of the streets, some of these one-way streets that aren't really being utilized. We can make those maybe some bike routes or some walk routes or whatnot. There's different ways to look at it, but those are things that have been ruminating in my mind.
That's really intelligent. Yeah, we already know that traffic lights can be programmed for, if there's like a long line right at the traffic stop, it can like start to adjust itself. So if it detects people in the bike lane, if it detects people on the sidewalk and people on the traffic, then it can start to modify its behavior to try to intelligently, manage that traffic. So I think that's a great idea. I didn't even think of that myself. That's and I've been in this, I've been around it for a while. So I mean, it makes sense. You're an actual biker. I don't actually ride my bike around. So, your interaction with that is actually very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Another group that I work with is actually the largest and the longest mobilization of Asian Americans in New York City history. I believe is happening at Bensonhurst, where right now they're actually protesting they're trying to build a homeless shelter. And I've been homeless at the age of 16 due to extreme violence I faced as a result of the Korean War. But so I'm definitely sympathetic to that community, but I also have been in the shelter system. And I know that there's a lot of people who come out of prison from there, and to have a shelter next to a school or next to a major, a food center where families go, it's a problem. Also, by the way, the Asian American community is often targeted for, because the rent there is cheap, and a lot of times government programs want to put, I wouldn't, maybe you could say like undesirable things that they don't want in the rich communities. They end up pushing them onto the Chinese American community. So, as in terms of the shelter that they're trying to build on 86th Street in Bensonhurst, would you support a community review before they build these kinds of shelters?
100%.
Yeah.
Here's the approach from my perspective, right? And just general methodology. There we go. Just best practices, right? Best practices is, if we want to do something, we should get buy-in and feedback, like authentic buy-in and feedback from the people that are actually going to be experiencing whatever is going to come about, right? As opposed to having everyone that is back in the offices and just worried about trying to make more money and do this or do that or figure this out and make their life more comfortable, and coming out here saying, hey, look, how are we going to, well, just do this, just do that, because they're just nobodies. Nobody's a nobody. That's the thing. Nobody is a nobody.
Right.
But we keep treating people like nobodies, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, we need to approach it with compassion, because we never know when we might be that person who's homeless.
I agree.
Right? We never know who might be that person who needs food or needs this or needs that, right? I myself have been homeless, right? So technically, if I'm not in school right now, I would be homeless. See, I was in Philadelphia and I had a situation out there that developed while I was going to school before I transferred to Columbia. When I was transferring to Columbia, I was homeless. When I came to New York from Philadelphia, I was living on the streets. I was sleeping in classrooms. I was sleeping in parks and doing all sorts of things because I didn't have a place to live, because that's what my situation had developed into, right? So I understand not only that part of it, but growing up without most things, right?
Yeah.
Without the materialistic things is what I'm saying. I had the most important thing, and that was love. But the materialistic thing, growing up and saying, hey, look, we were on welfare. I know what that's like. So it's something that I'm definitely relating and can relate to, and definitely want to make sure is benefiting the people that need it, right, and is out of the hands or control of the people that don't want it, if that makes sense, right? The people that don't want to provide these services, like, we need to remove the control from them and bring the control back into the people, right? The people don't realize.
Actually, in this case, right, it's kind of, just so you know, I'm actually, even though I've been homeless before too as well, right? I do also believe that the Chinese community is actually, like, they have 8 homeless shelters in Chinatown itself. And also, being formerly homeless myself, I think it's also a problem for the people that are homeless to be all housed in the in Chinatown, because the people around there don't speak English. So you come out of the shelter, you're trying to get food, you're trying to actually, you have cultural differences, things like that. Now, the thing is that we know that, just so you know, there's, I've also done work upstate. There's a place called Newburgh, where actually, I believe that they're trying to, people in the public housing we talked about earlier, they wonder where they're going to end up. So the thing is that in Newburgh, there was PFAS in the water from some military, Scotch Guard. They end up dumping that into the water. People were getting cancer, stuff like that. But around that area, There's also a prison up there too. So there was a huge environmental disaster, but they built a lot of homes there with HUD money. That's a federal program. So the thing is that they have federal money that went to build homes, and then now they have to fill those homes because you cannot use federal money to build a home and just have it empty. So now what they're doing is they're taking poor people, they're moving them to that community, they're taking people from prison, right? And the thing is that people from prison have a lot of challenges. And before I was saying, so that they could be put into a community like Soho, there's jobs, Battery Park City, the rich parts of New York City, where there's some resources to help them. But instead of putting them there, they put them into this place upstate Newburgh where there's a crack epidemic going on, there's no jobs, you know what I mean? And they just tell them good luck. So I do agree with the Chinese American that it's not the best place, and I do feel like they're overburdened.
I lost you there for about 30 seconds. I lost you there for
sorry about that. Yeah. So I also had that pause for a second, but the thing is that upstate in Newburgh, right? There's environmental problems, right? There's actually cancer-causing products in the water. There's also a prison up there, and the thing is that these homes have to be filled because they were built with HUD money. So the thing is that if people coming out of prison, they need resources to try to readjust back to normal life. But the thing is that instead of being put into a community like Soho or the West Village, right, these rich communities that have a lot of resources and potential jobs, they're actually shoveled into the poor communities. We look at Newburgh, crack epidemic going on, no jobs. How are the people in prison coming out of prison supposed to make it? That's why you have a large amount. That's one factor in terms of large recidivism rates. So the Chinese American community, once again, I do feel what you're saying as in terms of, right, if you just say, you know, who wants a homeless shelter, everybody's going to say no. So I do understand, right, there has to be some balance there. But I do support the Chinese Americans because they have built 8 shelters inside of New York City's Chinatown versus I don't believe there's any shelters inside of Soho, right? Or the richer communities are not really bearing their fair burden. So
right.
Once again, that's the largest mobilization of Chinese Americans, and they just turned that district from blue to red. They actually so not saying believe it thought, you know, all groups have factions, and not saying that I'm just Republicans are right for everything and Democrats are bad for everything, or vice versa. But it shows the dissatisfaction and the potential for change. And if you want this group support, right, that the Chinese American community out there in Bensonhurst, with the largest mobilization in New York City history, which they want to hear, right, that their voices will be heard, as in terms of stopping the shelter from being built in their community. So I feel what you're saying. Also, being formerly homeless myself, you're right. Nobody kind of wants you. Actually, to tell you the truth, poor people usually treat me better than rich people, right? Because the poor people is one of them, but the rich people, like, you're lowering my property value. This kind of mentality. So I understand from both sides, but
I have a better understanding of your question now because you went in a little deeper. So let me readdress that. So I think now what you're saying is the Asian community, the Chinese community, they're saying they're like, hey, we've had enough built here, is what they're saying. I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it now.
Not only that, but they're also building the shelter right next to a school and right next to a large family center and a child care center. And they're concerned. And look, I've been homeless too, especially and there are some shelters that are set up nicely, like Harlem Bowery Mission. I think they do a great job, but there's a lot of people in, I'll be honest with you, in some of the shelters that I have some of my boys that are living in shelters right now. I know people that have been in prison for years and came out without incident, and they went to a shelter in New York City and got stabbed immediately. There are sometimes some of these situations are dangerous, and to put children there, the community has to have some input about what's going on. But you're right too, like a lot of communities will just say, no, I don't want this. So there has to be a balance there. But
I think now I have a more comprehensive answer for you for totality.
Go ahead.
Now, with addressing those issues of security concerns, right? This is where we go back into the 3 R's: respect, reform, restore, right? So first we need to go in there and establish a form of order, security, right? It's like Maslow's hierarchy, right? We need to feel secure. And then we can handle fire, food, shelter, all that security, right? So we can't function properly if we're in fight or flight all the time, right? So what can we do? We can repurpose our police force. We can repurpose the community in general by establishing new jobs for people, giving them new training, saying, hey, look, who would like to be a monitor, right? Who would like to be a let me go into detail for that, like a monitor. There's something where we're addressing the corruption, right? And this is how we help address the situations that are also happening with these developments that in Chinatown, the homeless shelters. We have police going out here doing everything but their job. Some of them, right?
Right.
So what we need to do is get out of the vehicles and get in the streets, put the police back in the streets. And then we need to have civilian trained civilian monitors to monitor the police, right? That are assigned to the police. So I'm assigned to you, I'm assigned to this group, and whatever you do, you're going to do your job. But I have a checklist here that I've been given, and it's all on video because you can monitor everything, body cams and whatnot. So there's all the backing to make sure nobody is just doing things just to say somebody did something, right? Accountability. There's accountability there. But it would help eliminate a lot of the corruption that's going on, a lot of these situations where people are coming up and being unfairly dealt with the police. When you have a monitor there saying, hey, look, I can make a phone call and have this person on the phone real quick, and your job is on the line. It's not about me. You get it, right?
Something real quick, just so you know, I did a mayoral debate in the last election cycle, and we did a police reform event, and actually your plan right there aligns with, I don't know if you ever heard of someone named Frank Serpico.
No,
there was a movie with him and Al Pacino. He's actually one of the most famous like police. You could look SCRPICO. Actually, let me just show you on the screen right now.
I might know his face and not know his real name. I might know his screen name.
I'll show you right now. Yeah. So the thing is that he's probably the most famous. And just do a quick screen share right here. And actually, your plan actually aligns with his actual idea that the police cannot police themselves. I've been working with Stephen Lee, who actually called the reexamination of the NAP Commission, and that's actually wonderful. So I've actually been working somewhat on, this is Serpico. There was a movie about him with Al Pacino. Serpico's 1973 American biographical crime drama film starring Al Pacino that talks about, let me see over here. An honest New York cop named Frank Serpico blows the whistle on rampant corruption in the force, only to have his comrades turn against him. This is based on a true life story he's still living to this day. And your plan right there actually aligns with his idea that to have outside, review of the police agency, because I've done some, inside there's something called internal investigations, right? Internal affairs. And there's certain ways that that's set up where actually it short circuits and actually causes actual accountability to fail. So exactly what you're saying right there, having an outside force to actually review what's going on, that aligns with the best in the industry right there. And maybe it's your time in the military that's seeing that, but so that's a great place for us to actually work on that particular issue. So I love the idea right there. It really aligns with the best in the industry in terms of fighting corruption. I'm sorry, just want to say, go ahead. So yeah.
No, we're good. I'm enjoying. I'm saying wonderful. To that point, to your point of there was something that you just said, man, it just slipped my mind.
The police can't police themselves.
The last part, the last 10 seconds, was about the police.
I said that your plan for having outside, independent review of the police force is actually aligns with the best in the industry. I talked about the NAP Commission, Stephen Lee, Edwin Raymond. Those are two former police officers who have actually called out corruption in the police force. And actually, we could maybe even have a discussion panel with other mayoral candidates and yourself. And a lot of times the regular candidates that you see on, even Mayor Adams, won't have discussions about these particular topics, but we'll go in there and try to force these issues, even if I really like what you said so far about like complete, not compete, right?
Mhm.
We're going to make sure that these issues get addressed one way or the other. So that's really my focus and goal. And by partnering with people like yourself that are willing to take the plunge and run for office, we can be a good team to make sure that these issues get addressed. So
Indeed.
I'm really excited to work with you because you touch on so many different aspects of what I'm working on.
Thank you. I am too. It's meant to be. It's meant to be. It's
Great.
definitely meant to be.
So maybe we'll come back to that, but just so you know, another we're getting towards the end here of my partner's issues, right? Another issue that community that I support, and I did actually vote for Trump. I mean, whatever. That's, if you feel that good or bad about that, that's fine, right? There are problems, and one of the problems that is with the Trump. I feel like their community is not necessarily the nicest to trans people, but there are decent reasons, like the drag queen story hour does deserve review, community review, right? The thing is that we know that even Boy Scout leaders, we know that Catholic preachers will sometimes abuse children. So just because someone is in a class that's persecuted doesn't mean that everything they do is okay, right? Whether whoever you are, that program should be reviewed. So I'm completely okay with community review for drag queen store hour, but once again, I do support trans people. But here's my question right here. It's trans related. I try to take care of everybody in the garbage. And I'll often the end there. So it's a hypothetical question, and you're going to see how this question breaks down. So the thing is that we know that trans people face a lot of discrimination in jobs. They face discrimination as in terms of housing, right? A trans person comes and says, I want to rent this facility. The landlord might say, I'm not sure about that. So they often find themselves needing public housing. Now, this is a hypothetical question. Let's suppose that 10% of the people, these are made up numbers, by the way. Let's suppose that 10% of the people applying for public housing are trans. Then we do a study and we see that only 1% of the people in public housing are trans. So we see, look, there's some kind of discrepancy here. What's going on? Now we go to talk to the trans community and we say, what do you think is happening? Why do you think there's discrepancy? And they say, we're getting beat up. People aren't treating us right. They're leaving nasty messages for us. So we're leaving this community because we feel that we're being discriminated against. Now there's no law saying that you can discriminate against trans people. In fact, there's law saying that you should, but this is still happening, right? And whether you agree with their lifestyle or not, right? They're still taxpayers. What can you do to assure this community fair access to government resources?
This is why the 3 R's work so well with everything, right? Because regardless, like you said, regardless if you agree or not, right? Like
Right.
Back to voting. I don't have an issue with who people vote for. That's
Okay.
not, that doesn't do anything to me, right?
Right.
I care about how are things happening for people, regardless of who's in office. But right. So
Yeah,
to your point
absolutely.
now,
I'm 100% on board with that.
you get it, right? So
maybe being like, someone who's actually been on, a lot of people there in their armchairs, like theorizing about stuff, but you've actually lived it. So I feel like people who've lived it understand exactly what you're talking about.
yes.
That's who I work with.
Yeah.
I think my community is going to love you. We're going to see.
Oh man, praise God. So the thing is, when you say, all right, look, these are trans, it doesn't matter if they're trans. It doesn't matter if they're not trans.
Right.
They're people. They're people. Everybody is somebody,
But
right?
here's the trick, right? Yeah. There's already laws that supposedly protect them, but we see this phenomenon's taking place anyways.
Exactly.
What can you do? Also, there's a little twist in the question, right? The hypothetical, because remember I said 10%, 1%.
Yeah, we're getting there.
The thing is that, right, you might think, oh, well, are we going to set up like separate housing for the community? Are we going to try to implement quotas? By the way, that's usually very unpopular. Most people don't want to go with quotas. But how do you use the data also to like determine, right? You might not believe the data, right? The data often is also, remember being trans, people could also change their status, right? Like when I fill out an application form for college, I don't say that I'm Asian. I know it's going to work against me, right? But if I knew that was going to work for me, I would check mark Asian. So if people say, I guess there could be a spectrum of trans, right? Some people might feel like they're leaning trans. All of a sudden they're check marking the box, right? Oh, it's going to work against me. I'm not going to check mark the box. There's a lot of issues here. Just, Medicaid, you fill out what race you are, and that's how they try to check for bias in the Medicaid system, right? But people who are, LGBTQ don't really check mark that off on their Medicaid or housing forms. There's a lot of different potential solutions here. Sorry to throw them all at you at once, but once again, there's no law saying that you can discriminate against trans people, but when you see this happening, what can you do for this community to assure them fair access?
All right. So because in general, inclusivity is something that includes everybody. It should, right?
Yeah,
so
should.
It should. So discrimination, regardless if you're trans or you fall under another class, right?
Yeah.
I'm being discriminated against, and there are laws against discriminating against someone like me, right? But
yeah.
Columbia University, NYPD, and these other communities are actively, openly doing it right now, right?
That's God's truth. It's God's truth.
Right? To me,
I've incarceration of Black men than white races, right? 5 times the numbers of incarceration.
Yes.
You take a Black house and a white house, which house is worth more? If that house is Black owned, you're not supposed to be able to do that. The God's truth is worth less. What?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how are you gonna address
to that point is here's some questions, right? What do people think about removing certain boxes on applications? Why are those boxes necessary? Why do you need to know if I'm a male or female? Why do you need to know what my color is for me to live here? Why do you need to know these things? So my thing is, how can we figure out how to evaluate ourselves for things that don't involve our race, our financial status, our sexual preference, or identity? How do we figure out how to set up a system that allows us to operate without discriminating against ourselves, right? So that's the question first and foremost. Do we want a system like that? Do we want a system that it doesn't matter. When you fill this application out, it doesn't matter. They're going to look at it and they're going to say, hey, you're approved because of X, Y, and Z, right? Do you meet these 5 boxes? Can we check these boxes off for you? Do you have $1,000? Do you have a car? Do you have tennis shoes? Do you have this? Okay, cool. You can live here, right?
Yeah.
Why do we need to ask all these other questions? We need to ask all these other questions because we want to, as the people that are in control right now, right?
Right.
Because they want to perpetuate the sequesterment of humans, right?
Yeah.
So this inclusivity, whatever, however you want to say it, it is a fad.
Yeah.
It is a distraction to say, hey, look, we have this law here for you. We have this theme of inclusivity, right?
Yeah.
We have this thing that says you can now live here regardless of your gender and choice. You can now live here regardless of your color and all this, but yet we still are discriminating, right? So we need a form of accountability, just like we have accountability for the proposed accountability for police officers. We need accountability for this too. See, these are all jobs that we can generate for people that need a job. We can train them to come in and say, hey, look, take this checklist, go to this business and check these boxes or not. You don't have to, all you have to do is ask these questions or look at this and see, do you see a window here on this door or not? Okay, right. Well, if it's there, then they're good. If it's not, then they're out of code or there's a violation. Come back, report it, take pictures. So we need people that are going to take accountability at these places. We can send them out there and they can be auditors or whatever, however you want to call it. But this is something that we can implement not only here in New York, but across the world, where we can start saying, hey, look, we have a lot of people that can be our monitors. And say, hey, look, this happened today. What are you going to do about this? All right. We know right now when this building is built, let's just take it from scratch real quick. We have a building from scratch, 100 units in it. Right. We're starting to rent it out. So we can say, hey, look, 10 of these are for this, 10 of these are for this, 10 of these are for this, 10 of these are for this. Right.
Yeah.
And that's one way of approaching it. It's just saying, hey, we have 10 for this, we have 10 for whatever. People come in and they get assigned, right? First come, first serve. And make sure, though, the monitors are making sure that happens. And then we have monitors for the monitors.
Sounds great. Yeah. And that's, once again, the independent review, I think that's a great idea. I would definitely make sure that people that have actually experienced, the shortcomings of the system are involved with the monitoring. But I love that answer, right? That's great. So now, the last question I have for my partner is going to shout out Zul Zolkowitz. And he says, what will you do to assure the interests of poor and working class people will be addressed?
I'm going to ask them personally.
That's okay. Great answer. Yeah, actually have a conversation with them. I'm actually shut out from this discussion. I actually have footage of myself last night at a meeting with Brad Lander and Zoran Mamdani. I sent them, right, they're running for mayor. I asked them questions about helping this exact community, and they ignored it. So go ahead. I have it on camera. So
wow.
Yeah. So that's why exactly we need someone like yourself to step up and make the difference, right? So
yes, sir. Let me say this real quick. Because eventually it's going to come out, because I don't talk. I'm not a talker. Yeah, I'm a doer, right?
Good. That's what I like.
I would say I have some cards. I call them friendship cards, right? And I started passing these out in September, right? So my thing is, I'm saying to myself, how can we make this happen without requiring anything from anyone? Because first of all, not everyone can vote, right?
Yeah.
But everyone living here needs something to sustain themselves, right?
Right.
We all need our needs to be met. So regardless of whether or not you can vote, whether or not you believe in me or don't, you might not even be old enough. You might be a little baby, but you still are here, right? Yeah. So how can we then establish a system that supports everyone regardless of their support for the system, right? And forgive me, I need a rewrap on that question. I got lost again.
No problem. Yeah. So it was helping the interests of the poor and the
be heard. Your voice is heard, right? Yeah. Okay. So my cards, that's the thing. So I have these cards, and what I started doing was going out, riding the subway like I normally do, and just interacting with people. Maybe I'll start having a conversation with everyone on the subway and get their attention. I might say something or have an interaction, or it might just to catch people off guard, right? And then all of a sudden you say, hey, well, this is who I am. This is what's going on. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what you need, because I'm running for mayor, right? So
yeah,
being out right now, the way I dress, I could put on a suit. I can get dapper and debonair. I could do all that, but that's not what this calls for right now. Right now, the situation calls for someone going out in the streets and asking people what they need and meeting those needs, doing everything we can to figure out how can we help each other get out of this situation. Why do we have so many people on the streets homeless when we have all this money? I would prefer you not send money to my campaign, and instead, why don't we send money to help these people on the street? Even if it's just one neighborhood that we go to today and we say, hey, look, we were going to put this money in the campaign, but instead we decided to buy you guys lunch and get you socks and shoes and say, hey, look, you can sleep in a hotel for the night. Like, there's so many other things that we can do that we're not doing to take care of each other, right? So we need to get out there and say, hey, look, what do you need? Stop ignoring people. If you see, I've even done this so people can see it. There's videos on my website where I've gone out and just laid out there on the street and giving, looking homeless and whatnot, and videotaping it, right? And you'll see people just walking by, looking at me, saying different things, and they have no idea that I'm actually me, but I'm just out there trying to say, hey, look, this is what we're doing. Do we care about each other? We don't even care about each other. Like, no one stopped and said, hey, do you need something? Can I give you like some water? Like, are you okay? Like, I'm laying there looking dead. You look on my, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I have a couple of them on there where I'm like, it's dark and I'm like laying on some sidewalks or whatnot, right? Just to give people that understanding, like, this is what we're doing to each other. This is what we're doing to each other. You never know who you might come in contact with, a poor person, homeless person, whatever. What got them there? That could have been you. That could have been me. It was you. It was me. It was your mother. It was your brother, right? But we forget that these people are suffering and they're connected to us. Yeah. We forget that we are humans. We forget that we all have the same blood. We forget that we are living here together. We forget that all of us are neighbors because none of us can escape Earth, right? So, like, we're here to be in harmony with each other. We got to figure out how to start loving each other. If you really want your community to be better, if you don't want to see all these homeless people in your community, then do something about it instead of talking about it. Get out there and help them. Help them reestablish themselves. Figure out what got them there. There's doctors, there's lawyers, there's school teachers, there's all sorts of people out on the streets, right? Now I remember what I was going to tell you about that other situation. I want to go back to
let's go back.
The homeless shelter situation, right?
Absolutely.
Here's something that can address the homeless shelter situation as well as people coming in trying to get asylum and refugee camps and whatnot, or just, get that relief. We have people coming over here, doctors, lawyers, dentists, teachers, carpenters, all sorts of jobs and skill sets coming over here. The only thing is they don't speak English, right?
Yeah.
Well enough, or they don't have an American degree, right?
Yeah.
So we treat them like they are ignorant and incapable. But what we can do and what we should be doing is setting up temporary camps where these people, we can say, hey, look, who's a doctor, who's a lawyer, who's this, who's that, and we can let them work within their own community where they can communicate with each other. And then we have translators that come in and assist so that they can transition from where they came from to working with Americans somehow, right? Why can't we have the lawyers and doctors that are here in America working through a translator, working with the lawyers and doctors and everybody else, school teachers and whatever, helping the people that are coming over here help their own people instead of saying, hey, you're incapable. No, I'm not. I'm a doctor. No, I'm not. I'm a teacher. No, I'm not. I'm a trainer. No, I'm not. You get what I'm saying?
I can give you a short. I was actually in medical school, while Trump was president, so I didn't really experience the Trump presidency as a lot of other people did. I was actually overseas on a medical school, and unfortunately, just so you know, our system creates artificial scarcity of doctors to maintain their high prestige and money level. So, when people's own wealth is implemented and is put in competition with their ideals, a lot of people fold. And so I agree with you, but that's why actually they would actually be incentivized to prevent people who coming in from overseas becoming doctors, because, oh no, are they going to charge less money? Are they going to be my competition? And it's quite sad, but that's just
the people can make the change, right? But that's the thing. The thing is saying, hey, look, let's take voting, for instance. If nobody voted, what do you think would happen?
Well,
if no one voted, if no one whatsoever went out to vote,
then we would all be just living on whatever we want to do. Like people just.
No, I'm saying like the system is there, but this particular voting period, people decided we're not going to go out and vote at all, right?
There could be no mayor. There would be no one would be elected to office.
Something else would have to take place, right?
Yeah.
That's what people need to understand, is that the people have the power, but they've relinquished. We have, as a people, we have relinquished our power to fabricated government. It's not a
Yeah.
government. It is a system of people that are elitists and want to keep it that way. Right. And they give you this idea like, oh, we're giving you this, we're giving you that, we're setting this up for you, inclusivity, right? And it's just a distraction to keep the people that are here in this area going like this with different things, while everybody up here is chilling like this, right?
Yeah.
And then the other levels, it just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going.
Yeah, it's out of balance. Exactly.
So we need to understand, we need to say, hey, look, we actually have the power. So how do we regain it? How do we restore that?
Okay.
It comes through saying, hey, look, we've had enough.
Absolutely.
We've had enough.
Okay, and so now I'm going to cut to the questions for actually I'm going to just dump my own question. Yeah.
All right.
I have my own things that I need, but I think that I learned about you. Now we know that there's different levels of government. There's federal. They take care of the military. They take care of the mail, right? The post office, federal agency, FBI, right? Yeah. Then we know that the state and the city, right? The state is actually taking care of something. The city takes care of what? Our police force, our schools. What do you think are the most? Now you get to decide which issues that you specialize in, right? You're a former military. You're right now in the CUNY system. You're a student. You experienced homelessness, so you've experienced that particular system. What do you think are the most urgent issues, or what do you think is? Well, okay, I'll ask a separate question. The first question is, what do you think are the most urgent issues for New York City?
Respect. Is that simple? Respect.
So the culture. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Number one, asks people this question, right? If you go outside, you just go out in the community, ask someone, hey, what is the one thing that you just feel that you don't get out here? What do you think you need? Why are you so upset? Because people don't respect me. I'm not getting respect, right? They're not respecting that I'm a transgender, right? They're not respecting that I am this or I'm that, right?
Right.
So respect is number one. It doesn't matter if you agree or not. Respect the situation. Respect that you don't know that person's situation. So stop judging them. And instead, either help them or go your way, but don't make their situation worse, right?
I agree.
So it starts with that, learning how to respect, and we got to respect ourselves first. If we don't know how to respect ourselves, right, then how can we respect each other? And respect is something that a lot of people have this misconception about, that respect is earned. Respect isn't earned. Respect is a gift. Respect is a gift, right? I'm going to come in. I don't know you. You don't know me. I got to earn your respect. You got to earn my respect, and we don't know each other. What kind of sense does that make? It's our first time meeting. Why can't we just be respectful to each other?
Yeah.
You see, you know what I'm saying? Like that.
Yeah.
If you want to, I want to treat you like you. I want you to treat me.
Yeah.
So that's number one.
I love it. Yeah, I really do. So now that we're getting towards the end now. The second question is going to be, okay, so what do you think is your most, everybody has their specialty of what they know, right? What do you think, what policies are you best adapted to take on as New York City mayor because of your qualifications and understanding?
Anything.
Okay.
Anything.
That's
I'm
cool.
prepared for anything, right? Because here's the thing. I don't have to know everything to be prepared for everything, right? See, I'm willing and ready to face any situation and learn about it, learn enough about it to make a difference about it, to affect it, right? Yeah. I'm not afraid of learning. I'm not going to come in here and be like, oh, I know everything. I'm learning this situation, right? But I know one thing. I know the difference between right and wrong, right? I know what it means to treat somebody fairly and unfairly, right? So that's not hard for me to do. So when I look at situations coming and being presented in that office of the mayor, no matter what the topic is, the first thing we're going to look at is, what is the benefit? What is the benefit of this? Who is it benefiting? Who? Figure out who, and then figure out why. Is it necessary? Why is it necessary? Okay, if the who and the why are taken care of, then we can go on to the other interrogatives.
Those are great answers. And by the way, I do plan on actually sending this interview to some other candidates that I've worked with in the past and be like, hey, I think you should watch this. This is a good model, because some of them feel like they have all the answers, right? They're not really willing to spend that time to learn about different issues. So that's an intelligent answer. And really, if you're willing to learn about it, and that's really the key, right? Some people feel like they have they're armchair quarterbacks. They know everything, right? Never really threw a pass in their lives. Somehow they know it all. No, no. All right. So great interview, by the way. How can people find out more about your campaign? You have a website, you have social media. How can people, find out more and support your campaign?
Yes. So because of the way I'm approaching it, rather differently. I'm not coming at it with, trying to be out there and do all sorts of things. I'm taking it step by step like this. If I get invited, or when I get invited to another interview or debate or whatnot, it'll go out word of mouth. That's number one, right? Is because it's about who you know. I'm here to be people's friends, right? So I'm out here doing my best to make as many friends as I can and say, hey, look, not only am I your friend, but anybody you're associated with, I want to be their friend. I want to offer my friendship to them too. They don't have to be my friend, but I'm here to be theirs, right? Awesome. But my website, I have a website, www.tryagain.org. There's information about me on there, not so much the campaign, but if people want to understand me better, they can go to my website. Other than that, it's a journey that's just beginning. So to answer that question, I'm learning about how they're going to learn about me more and more as well.
Okay, I'm actually going to flash your website on the screen so that people can take a look. That's try-again.org, right? You can see that on the screen, right? Okay, that's your website. And okay, just want to let people see that. Anything else?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm open to receiving phone calls, emails. That's how we connected, So I'm not here to
Talking
shy
about word of mouth.
You say what?
Oh, talking about word of mouth, I will be emailing all my my coalition as well as yourself, and then I'll timestamp the parts in this video where you answered this question that were specific to them, so they can see a response to those questions. Hopefully, they get back to you and do some type of work and stuff like that. Now that people have your information, now that they can go to your website and see what's going on, what do they have to look forward to? You got any events coming up? You got anything,
Not currently at the present time. There's nothing set in stone yet, but I am open and willing to go anywhere in New York.
I got events popping off right now. I'm going to tell you about them coming up. So,
all right. So I'm willing and ready to go. I'm willing and ready to go. If people want to have meet and greets, they want to set up something where we can come and have a talk with one-on-one or 1-on-100. It doesn't matter.
This Wednesday, there's a guy named the Lord K. Bourne. He's actually his single was pressed. He's on the first. I don't know if you've ever heard of a producer called Teddy Riley, the inventor of the sounds. Yeah. He's the first guy to rap on Teddy Riley's first beat. It's called the Classical 2. Okay. And he's actually having a food pantry that's going to happen on Wednesday. He's actually, I think, running for state assembly. I think he may run for city council in this sector. Maybe good for you two to meet up. Okay. We will be having mayoral debates. I think there's also someone named Jackie Lara who's running for tenant associate president at Fulton, Chelsea. I may actually find a time for you to go and meet her, and you'll be in the email, so you'll be able to contact them. So there's probably a whole bunch of things coming up. Okay. It's a great interview. Now usually I do this shop talk a little bit. I might actually leave the thing on while I talk about some of these things. Okay. Now to qualify for mayor, I do believe what is it, 14,000 signatures that you need to qualify on your petitions? Something like that. Right? It's a very high number, right? It's going to take a lot of work. Now, the thing is that, I don't know if you've seen on my website, djl7.com, front and center, there's something called Rep My Block. And the
Yes.
thing is that this program, actually, we have the voter database of everybody who's actually voted in previous elections. So the thing is that you could go on the street and get people to sign your petition, but a lot of those signatures will not validate because people will give you a fake address, they'll give you a fake name, right? Or those people just won't be registered to vote. So
Right.
they'll want to help you, but they're not even their signatures are invalid. So the thing is that luckily for you, you're not running as Republican or Democrat, so you could have anybody sign your form. You don't have to have specifically, if you're running as Republican, you have to specifically have Republican sign because you're going through the primary system.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we can still have, I can provide you with the data of the people that are voting already, and you can go door to door. And then, when you're at their door, you can actually validate the address right there. I'm here at this address. So you can make sure that validation rates are very high. And you can actually conserve and also the people that I work with, if they're significantly impressed with you, then they may actually decide to volunteer with you. Also, just so you know, being mayor is actually, here's actually one of the horrible truths. A lot of the things that they say are for us are actually weaponized against us. Now, here in New York City, they have something called publicly funded elections. Sounds great. But here's the horrible truth. In order for you to qualify as now different, I think that to run for state assembly, $500 all you need, right? So $500, they something called matching funds. The
Yeah.
government gives you 8 times that money back, and you have $4,000 for your campaign. But for a mayor, in order for you to qualify, you have to have $250,000 in donations. That's outrageous. And so it means that only millionaires are really qualifying for matching funds. So they kick in like $1 million, and a lot of campaign have already received over $1 million. That's Brad Lander has received over $1 million. And that means he's going to get $8 million back from the state. How are you going to compete with that level of marketing and all of this other stuff? So once again, by having our coalition, we're going to try to have some maybe debates, maybe some fundraisers, some get to know yous, right? And if you help my community, I have the footage of them, even Kamala Harris, right? Just longest incarcerated man in New York State history, Otis Johnson, just ignoring us, okay? Their frustration can be weaponized by someone like yourself to actually empower fundraising to get you a fair deal because you're also getting effed over in this. You know what I mean? So we're going to have a coalition of the unsatisfied. Yeah. So
Good.
really looking forward to it. I'm going to actually end the interview here unless there are last words you want to say, and then we'll talk offline. But any last words that you want to have for my audience?
I just want to say thank you so much, and God bless everyone. And we're going to do this. We
Let's do
are
it.
the winning team here. Know
Oh,
that.
there's a lot of just so you know, I've helped a lot of people run through the process. The mayor is actually more complicated than most of them. They make you have an emblem and all these other things. They love to try to kick people off the ballot and try to interfere with your ability to actually run. There's a lot of shenanigans going on. Some of my people like Theo Chin have helped a lot of other candidates navigate that process. And so hopefully you make it through because there's a whole the gauntlet has just started. If
Yes,
you
sir.
want to be impactful, they're not going to just let that happen. All
Yeah.
right. So,
No, it's not, but it will happen. I know that. I have faith. And just the fact that you and I are having this conversation in this interview right now is a testament to the faith and belief that I have that we're going to see this through in 2025.
thank you so much. All
Know
right,
that.
check them out. All right, try again. There you go. I'm going to end the tryagain.org. End the stream. All right, and then we'll have our own little private conversation afterwards. It's ending right now.